Hey y'all, welcome back to our channel. I'm Angie and this is Our Contented Home. Today's video is going to be a fun one. I'm decorating the mantle for spring, but my challenge to myself this week is to use things that I have around the house. So I shopped my house, I pulled some things together that I could use, and I decorated the mantle for spring, and I want to share it with you. So I hope you enjoy this video. This is my mantle and this is the space we'll be working on today, and you can tell that I haven't done much to this space since Christmas, and I know that I want to add color and dimension and layers for spring. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to use some of the pieces that I already have on the mantle, but I'm going to be adding things from my stash. And remember, my challenge to myself was to not buy any new decor for this mantle. And I know that I want to do topiaries. I think that it will be the perfect look for this room. Plus, topiaries are also very spring-like. And so I'm going to check and see what I have to create 2 topiaries. So I'll share that DIY with you, and then I'll show you what I come up with to add to the mantle. And hopefully I can keep to the challenge and not buy any new decor. So we'll see what I come up with and create it together. So it should be a fun video. For this project, you're going to need some pots. I'm using these old terracotta pots, and I just grabbed some out of my garage that were about the same size. And then you'll need some type of greenery. I'm using this old green wreath that I had laying around. I'm just going to take some of the greenery out of it. Glue gun, glue sticks, and then some styrofoam, round styrofoam balls, and then you'll need some styrofoam to go in the bottom. You could use the spheres or whatever you have on hand. This is what I had on hand, so I'm going to make that work in there. And then some sticks. I just grabbed these out of the yard. But you could also use these little thin dowels. And then that's all we need. If you're using a wreath for this part of the project, you want to start by taking the greenery away from the form that the wreath is on. And this was pretty easy. You just pulled it out, and the ends they have a little point on them, so they should be easy to put into the styrofoam ball. But if you're using just regular greenery, you'll want to cut each individual stem off so that you can put it onto the styrofoam ball. This is all the greenery from one wreath, and I think it's enough to cover the entire styrofoam ball. So I take the plastic covering off the ball, and then I start with my glue gun. And one tip that I have learned is if you put a little dab of glue on the glue stick and put it into your gun, it glues it to the other glue stick, and so you don't have to stand there and hold it. So this works so well, and I love this tip so much that I wanted to pass it on to y'all. And so what I started doing at first was I just put a little bit of glue on the tip of my greenery, and then I poked it into the styrofoam ball. And that worked for a little while, but you really need to be careful not to burn yourself because hot glue can get really, really hot. And so I just kept doing that a few passes over the ball, and then I grabbed a pen and just started poking holes in my styrofoam ball. I still continued to put hot glue on the end of the greenery, but this made it a little bit better since I'd already poked the hole with the pen. I'll show you another tip that I started doing later that worked even better, but this is also a good tip, and it worked really well. Also, if the greenery you're using has a pointy tip, you may not even need hot glue, but I wanted to make sure this was secure, so I did use the hot glue, but you might could get away with not using any. I kept adding the greenery all around the ball just by adding hot glue to the ends of my greens, and then I decided to poke a hole with the pen and then put the hot glue directly into the hole that I had punched with the pen. And this works so much better for me because as you fill the ball up with the greenery, it gets harder and harder to see. And so if you just put the glue in the hole and then stick your greenery in there, it just makes it a whole lot easier. So just remember that tip. It worked better for me as the ball got full, and it just was easier. You didn't have the risk of burning your fingers, and it really holds the greenery secure to the styrofoam ball. For the next step, I took this piece of styrofoam and I cut it so that it would fit into the bottom of my terracotta pot. And just keep in mind that the stick that you put your topiary on has to go through this styrofoam. So if you want it to be a certain height, then you need to measure the pot and the styrofoam to make sure how long your stick needs to be. And then another tip is to cut the corners of the styrofoam at an angle so that it'll fit securely in the pot. Next, I'm going to cut a piece of styrofoam for the top of my pot, and I just put my pot on top of the styrofoam and use it as a pattern, and then just cut out a square shape. And then after you get this cut out, it's pretty easy to cut. I cut this with a knife, but you can cut it with scissors or an X-Acto knife, anything you have on hand. Just be careful not to cut yourself. And I just cut it out and then broke it, and then I will cut the sides at an angle so that they will fit inside my pot. The next thing you want to do is take that styrofoam and put it into the top of your pot. Now mine fit nice and secure, but if you want it more secure, you can always add a bead of hot glue. And then the next thing is you take the stick or the rod that is holding your topiary up, and you want to push it through that styrofoam ball. Now mine was a little difficult to push it through, and I was scared that I was going to break it. And so I took my pen and I poked that hole in it just like I did with the greenery, and this started it so that it was easier to push this stick into my styrofoam ball. Now notice that I did not put any greenery on the bottom of this topiary, and this saved some for my second topiary. And so keep that in mind when you're creating this. You don't need to cover the entire ball. It won't show if your greenery is hanging down from it. But I also took my glue gun and put some glue into that hole so that it would help my stick to be nice and secure and hold up the topiary when I put it on my mantle. So that's also a good tip to keep it nice and secure and make sure it doesn't fall. And then just fluff everything out after that. Then I take my pen and I poke a hole into that styrofoam that I've put into the pot. This makes it a little easier to get it in there. And then just poke that stick all the way down through that styrofoam and the styrofoam that's in the bottom of your pot. After the stick was nice and secure in the styrofoam, I did take my hot glue gun and put some glue around the stick and the styrofoam, and this just makes sure that it is nice and secure and it won't lean over or fall out or anything like that. And I just did this for an extra step just to make sure it's nice and secure. For the last step on this topiary, I'm just going to cover up all that styrofoam with moss. And so what I do is I take my glue gun and I put a lot of glue on that styrofoam. And then I take my moss and I just add it on top of that glue and cover up all that styrofoam. You can add as much moss or you can just add a little bit, just whatever your preference is. But I like to pile it on and just make it look nice and finished with this moss. This is what I've rounded up for my mantle. So here's my 2 topiaries. And then I found this blue and white vase. And then this is a little riser so that I can lift it up. And then I want to use my pheasant feathers. I just love the color and texture that these add. And then my favorite tulips, I'm going to add them. And then I also found this blue and white vase that has some height to it. And I also found this frame. I'll frame a family picture in that and put that on the mantle. And then I'm keeping this mirror up there. So all I've done is dusted the mantle real well and then I cleaned the mirror. So then I will start from here and just add layers to the mantle. I hope this video inspired you to shop your own home and to pull things that you have in your stash and decorate a space in a new way. It's a lot of fun to challenge yourself and just use the things you have, and I really enjoy this project so much. If you plan to do the DIY topiaries, I would love to hear about it in the comments, or if you've shopped your house to decorate a space, I would love to hear that also. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe and hit that bell for notifications when a new video goes live. And you can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, and my blog, Our Contented Home. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.